G'day all, Adam Wuiske here from Wuiske Models again, finally, etc. for Chapter 6 of the layout that Insanity built. If you can see behind me, there's been a hell of a lot done. So where have I been up to, what have I been doing, and where's the layout at? Let's see how we go. Okay, so first of all, I've got to apologise my attire, and I am sweating like you wouldn't believe, okay? Just because it's been raining here for 2 weeks. It has just stopped raining in the last few hours. Not proper rain, not real rain, just miserable pommy type rain that's just drizzled for 2 weeks. It's a mud bath outside. I've been using four-wheel drive to get from the house to the shed, and it is insanely muggy. So yeah, and in this wonderful tiny little shed that I haven't done air conditioning in yet, it's just muggy. So rightio. So where we're at, first of all, the framework for the layout is finished, except for one bit. And that's the bit, which I'll show on the screen, that is just as you come in the door, the area where main yards and the north yard for main are going to be. The turnaround at the end is done, and the turn going into it is done. It's just that one section that's only about 6 metres by 1.5 metres. That's the only bit left. And the timber's there for it. Everything's there to do it. I just can't do it yet because I'm building frames and things like this. And so I need space to get 6 metre lengths in and everything else. And so once I put that in, it's going to be really hard to get big bits of timber and things like that into the room. So yeah, but effectively the framing is done. So now I've been going around and I'm starting to put uprights in that you can see. So the total height to the top of this is 1910 millimetres, so a whisker under 2 metres. And that is the supports for the backdrop. And then I've just used the same 70 by 35 mil studding running along it to support the lights. Now, that brings us to another update, lights. So for the lighting, as many of you know, and I think I mentioned it in earlier videos, on my previous layouts, I did LED strip lighting, which was great. That was fantastic when I only had like 150 feet of frontage. Now, on this layout, there's at least 800 feet of frontage. So I put in about 50 feet and it worked great, but once it was getting to the end, I was starting to get voltage drop and just, it wasn't going to work. Just the amount of power it was going to consume and the amount of just time and stuffing around and things that electrically are just beyond my capabilities, if I'm honest. So basically what I did was I just started looking. Someone said in our Friday night chat, they said, oh, you want to look at tricolour LEDs, like your batten lights, which is the modern equivalent of fluorescent tubing. So I had a look, thinking it was a dumb idea, not going to lie. And I found these 4-foot batten lights. Tricolour, there's a little switch on the end. And they were, I think I paid, if you go to Bunnings and things like that, you'll pay like $40 each. I paid $139 for 10. And I thought, right, well, they're probably crap. They're probably going to die and this and that and the other, but at least I'll give it a go. So I bought 10. And then Tyson from Modeller's Warehouse was good enough to come out and put these ones up for me in a temporary sort of fashion. And wow, I'm happy. So it's actually shown me that my eyesight's not actually getting as bad as it was, because this room was a lot darker than I thought. And so now I've got those in, and then he's been back since. We've put in another 10 or 12, and then there's another dozen or so over the other side there ready to go in. So that's the way we're going to go. 1, it's cheap. 2, it's simple. And 3, it actually means I can do it with occupying as fewer power points as possible. But these are actually going to be hardwired in with a light switch or a series of switches at the door as you walk in. So basically, yeah. But the lighting, I love these things. The illumination they give is insane. And as I said, they're all mounted at the front of the layout. And so all shadows are cast backwards. So for taking photos and for just viewing the layout, there's not really anything in shadow, which, as I've mentioned before, I did this on the previous layout and it worked a treat. It's the same concept, but a different item facilitating it. Now, where I'm at, by saying that I've got the framing done, I've also got a fair bit of track down. Currently, I'm up to about 148 lengths of track. So you do the maths at 3 foot lengths. If you include the double slip as 2 sets of points. I've currently got 50 sets of points in. I've got another 12 sitting there waiting to go. But that's all good. We're getting there. So the actual branch line from Hamilton over behind me, all the way through to Turbot Street, our version of Roma Street, is all wired and running. If you can hear in the background in the last clip, you could hear something idling away. That was actually an SDS Models 1460 that I'm running in. So that was just sitting there idling. So with any layout that we build, I've found this from everyone I've ever met that's in model railways, from anywhere on the planet, is that with any layout we build, there's always these little scenes, like be it an entire station or just a tiny little snippet of a scene, you know, an inch or so long, anything in between. There's these little scenes that motivate you, and that's the inspiration, the thing that gets your juices flowing inside your head. Well, for me, there's a few things. So there's things like the curve coming out of Wanyaran Station, where it goes under the Diagla Highway, for those that are familiar with it. There's Normanby Rail Yards, which is the entire basis for this room of insanity, is Normanby. And this area right here, which is the terminus of the branch. Okay, so this is BP and Boral Bitumen, and this track right here is the old line where the branch used to continue to Clyde Engineering. Of course, in the era I'm modelling, it was ripped up, and this was just used as a stub track for storing tank wagons. So if you actually go on the Wuiske Models website on the prototype photo section, a lot of the photos you'll see of tank wagons, so anything starting with O, a lot of those, you'll see that they're in on a really leafy green siding. That's this siding. So, and right here is Boral Bitumen, and then over here you've got the 3 roads that we're going into BP. So then we get on towards Normanby, which, well, right where I'm standing is sort of the throat of Turbot Street Station. And then the goods yard, the old Roma Street goods yard, or Turbot Street goods yard as I'm calling it, will be right here. So effectively one of the sheds will be right here, and then here will be the 2 roads coming through for the out-of-gauge loading. So that's what we're working on. So right here you can see you've got these 2 roads here. That's platforms 3 and 4. They run around on the branch down to Hamilton. And then the far 2, right, that's platforms 5 and 6. They run through the wall and around into Caboolture, and that's your continuous suburban run. And then these 2 here is platforms 1 and 2 for the long distance trains. So they actually terminate. It's effectively a big passing loop. And then this little road here that has an SW water wagon and a HJS open wagon sitting on it at the moment, that's for putting the car carriers in. So for those that remember Roma Street, there was that siding with the loading ramp at the end for loading vehicles onto the Queenslander and the Sunlander. That's it. And then we move further down, there's another siding, that's Hiles for loading transshipping and everything else that used to be there, and then the goods yard on the other side. But as I've mentioned many times before, the inspiration for this layout really was I wanted to model Normanby rail yards. Then, for those that know, I had an interesting childhood, we'll call it that, and I spent some time in the Royal Kids Hospital, and I used to look out the window at Normanby yards in the 1980s, and the amount of activity and the things that used to go by, be it an escapism or whatever you want to call it, that was me. And I became fixated with it. And it just never left me. To the point of, if you go through this channel, you'll see a video called Normanby Ops, which I filmed when I was 16. I was still fascinated with Normanby. But as you get older and you start doing operations, you work out that it's just a yard. It needs to do things. And so that's how this grew into the monstrosity that it is. We're getting there quite nicely. I'm actually at the point where I really need to organise some time to put in the second power district, which will be this area here. So we're planning this layout will probably end up with 10 power districts thus far. Okay, so I've turned off 1460 because it was giving me a headache. So basically where we're at now with track, obviously I'm using the Wuiske Models track, and thus far I'm using Pico points, which I've got to say, they have gotten diabolically expensive. All right, I don't care who you are, they are a bloody rip-off for what they are. So, radio, that's me, whinge over for now. But I'll say this, so in putting the track down and powering it, the first thing is this is something that that came up last weekend when Tyson and Littlejohn were out here, is I said, you know, so far as cleaning the track, anyone who touches an abrasive block near these rails is going to get hurt, because only an idiot cleans their track with a track rubber or an abrasive block of any sort. Now, I feel confident in saying that because I spent years being that idiot. And there's nothing new that I'm saying here. Everyone knows this. It's just we still do it. It's kind of like smoking. Guilty. We know it's not healthy, but we still do it. So with track cleaning blocks, they leave microscopic scratches in the head of the rail. Those scratches keep dirt and everything in it, so the head of your contact surface is getting smaller and smaller. And I've seen it on my last layout. I managed to avoid it. The previous iteration of it, I didn't. And what I found was that I'd only need to clean the layout, the track once a month, something like that. But then if I used an abrasive block, even just on those stubborn areas, within no time I'd have to do it every week, then every day, then multiple times a day. And it took most of the enjoyment out of running trains, because you couldn't. You'd get so far and then she'd just stop. And there were always certain problem parts. And it really killed the enjoyment of operating the layout. So what I've been doing now is I'm using an electrical contact cleaner from CRC. I use that and a microfiber cloth. I bought these little tiny microfiber cloths. They're about 2 inches by an inch. I didn't know they were that small when I bought them, but I bought 1,000 for about $5. And so I've got plenty. So I use those and a bit of contact cleaner and just wipe the surface of the rail once I've wired it all up. I also use a fiberglass brush, a scratch brush, I think they also call them, especially where you've wired in your contact wires. You will have a buildup of flux and things like that, and so you'll see that the rails actually go green. You need to remove that. So contact cleaner and a scratch brush will actually get rid of it. One of the latest things I've actually been doing is I've been using the back of a pencil. Your woodworking pencils, they're a square shaped thing. I just use the blunt end of one of those and just rub it over the rail. And between that little bit of interaction with the timber, the soft timber, and the graphite, that seems to get rid of it beautifully. Easy. And it was what I had in my hand at the time. So I gave it a go and it worked. So there's a potential tip that I accidentally learned. But effectively with that, I just clean my track like that. After that, something else I do, which I know a lot of people will shout at me for and everything else, is I use WD-40, right? Oh, water dispersant number 40. It's fish oil. I put a little drop on each rail and then just run trains, okay? And it works. So what I've found is if your rails have that thin film on them, they are so much better for conducting electricity. And hey, for those that are, have a different opinion and think that's just crazy and everything else, fair enough. I'm not saying it's the right way. What I'm saying is that my last layout was about 500 feet of track. It worked. It worked a lot. And on this layout thus far, which this layout only gets run once a week, and it doesn't get run that much. And, this is a massive room. There's lots of sawdust and dust and concrete floor and everything you don't want in a layout room to keep things clean, I've got. And I don't do much cleaning. So just saying, it's worked for me. So give it a go if you want, or just yell and scream. But for me, it has worked, and I swear by it for me personally. So, because the last thing I want to be doing is just cleaning track, because it's a hateful, annoying, boring, just crap task. So one of the next jobs that I'm working on, one of the many next jobs, is to start putting in the backdrops. So I've ordered, and I've got 15 3mm thick sheets of MDF, 8 foot by 4 foot. I'm just going to rip them down the center to make 2 foot by 8 foot sheets. And that should, those 15, that'll give me 30 pieces of backdrop. That's 240 feet, which that'll make a bit of a dent. So effectively what I've started doing, as I mentioned earlier, was I've started putting in the uprights to hold the backdrops. I just couldn't really start doing the backdrops until I had some lighting in, because as you can see, the lights on the ceiling, they cover a couple of the aisleways. But once you put the backdrops in, it gets very dark in here very quickly. And we're all getting older, and my eyesight is not real flash when it comes to these sorts of things. So this is, as I was touching on before, the new lighting has changed my world so far as vision and everything else. I mean, at one point I was using the OptiVisor magnifiers to put fish plates onto, or rail joiners onto track. With those lights, no, I'm not. I can actually see marginally better. So where I'm at right now is that, as I've said, the framework is done, except for that one piece on the near the entryway, and I'm putting in the uprights for the background, the backdrops, and then I'll start putting in the cross members and the framework to hold the lighting. Now, I'm not in a massive rush to do this side of the layout as yet. It's mostly focusing on that side because that's the side I'm working on. So my next step, other than ripping down these sheets and starting on the backdrops, and then doing a bit of the headboards, because that'll shield some of the glare you're seeing right now from those lights, is to start laying more track. So I've got track down past Normanby, as in the main line is down. And so that's all the second power district, which I've got to wire yet. Now I am allowing for block detection for signalling and all of that. So there are insulated joiners every around 3 to 4 meters for the signalling and the detection systems. So that's all fine. That's all getting there. So that's my next real job wiring wise, is that. I want to get some more track in. I've just had another 20 packets of rail joiners turn up. There's 480 joiners. It's stupid, right? Anyway, so yeah, I've already gone through over 30 packs. So yeah, the numbers are a bit mad. In fact, it's interesting. I was talking last night in our chat, the Friday night chat, with Wuiske from South Africa, whom I've been very keen to meet for quite some time. And he's building, his layout, damn it, is actually about 10 square meters bigger than this one. Less track, but bigger. So radio. And we were talking about just the volumes. And yeah, it does blow your mind. And you look at it and you go, I'm never going to live long enough to finish this. But what else am I going to do? So radio. But it is interesting. So yes, so wiring is the next bit for the next section that I need to start doing, as well as laying more track, which will also include part of Turbot Street Goods Yard and Normanby Rail Yards, which I'm quite excited about. And then, as well as that, it's backdrops, fascias, and headboards that need to go in. And somewhere in between it, I need to start putting in framing for the tops for the next bit of lighting, so that I'm always a few steps ahead. So effectively in this, there's always 20 jobs that need to be done to stay a step ahead. The framing side of it, that gap across the doorway, is interesting because you don't really think of that on other layouts. It's just the quantities of material that are required, just physically getting them in, and how you're going to swing around a piece of 6 meter long timber becomes a problem. So once everything starts getting built in place. So just little things like that. And trust me, it is annoying. Having that gap is really, really annoying. And the amount of times I've gone to build it, and yeah, I can't, because I need to keep it open at the moment. So I'm working on it, and you get that. We shall see how we go with that. So there we go. So that's basically where I'm up to, incredibly briefly, on the layout that Insanity built. It is getting there. I'm actually at the stage down this end where I can start doing some scenery, which I'm really happy about. Yeah, I've already started painting some of the rails, which I'm just using Tamiya spray paint for, just down that end around Hamilton, just to see how it went. And I'm pretty happy with the result. So I'll put a photo up. So hopefully you've enjoyed that, and you can see where I'm up to, and that I haven't actually been doing nothing. I've been very, very busy with this. I just haven't been taking the time to share it and everything else. There's been about 20 times I've gone to make this video, and I've gone, oh, before, I'll just do this first. Or, oh, I left the camera up in the house, and just different excuses, and I just haven't gotten around to it. So it's here now. So you get that. Basically, it's getting there. I'm having an absolute ball with it. I'm getting my fun and my enjoyment back with it, and I'm actually genuinely just loving it. So yeah, it's been a welcome reprieve for my severe lack of sanity. So thank you very much if you've enjoyed this. I hope you have. And, you know, if you do the like and all, you know, all the garbage everyone says. But hopefully it will not be too long for the next update. I'm really sorry once again for the stupid delay. I needed it. But I'm here. So we'll keep you updated as to what's happening and where we're at. And we shall see how we go.